Once upon a time, in a small village nestled in a green valley, there lived a young boy named Peter. Peter was an ordinary boy, with messy brown hair, bright blue eyes, and a freckled face. He lived with his parents in a small house at the edge of the village, where they ran a small farm. Peter's parents were hard-working people who had taught him the value of hard work and honesty from a young age. They had instilled in him a strong sense of responsibility and a deep respect for the land they farmed. Peter spent most of his days helping his parents on the farm, tending to the animals and crops, and learning the skills he would need to run the farm when he was older. But Peter had a secret dream, a dream that he had never shared with anyone, not even his parents. Peter dreamed of becoming a writer. He loved to read, and he spent every spare moment he had devouring books. He loved the way words could transport him to other worlds and the way stories could make him feel things he had never felt before. One day, as Peter was walking through the village, he saw a sign in the window of the local bookstore. The sign said that the store was looking for a part-time employee to help with inventory and customer service. Peter's heart leapt with excitement. He had always loved that bookstore, and the idea of working there was like a dream come true. Peter gathered his courage and walked into the bookstore, his heart racing. The owner of the store, an older woman named Mrs. Thompson, greeted him warmly and listened as he explained his interest in the job. Mrs. Thompson was impressed by Peter's enthusiasm and offered him the job on the spot. Peter was overjoyed. He had never felt so happy and grateful in his life. For the next few weeks, he spent his afternoons and weekends working in the bookstore. He loved every minute of it, from the smell of the books to the conversations he had with customers. One day, as Peter was restocking the shelves, he noticed a dusty old book sitting on a top shelf, far out of reach. It was an old leather-bound book with no title on the spine. Curiosity getting the best of him, Peter climbed up a ladder and reached for the book. As he opened the book, a cloud of dust rose up, making him cough and sneeze. The book was filled with beautiful illustrations and stories that Peter had never seen before. He started to read, and as he did, he felt as though he was being transported to another world. The stories were magical, and he couldn't put the book down. He read the entire book in one sitting, and when he was finished, he knew that he had to share the stories with others. Peter talked to Mrs. Thompson, and she agreed to let him display the book in the store. The book became an instant hit, and customers started coming to the store just to see the book and read the stories. Peter was thrilled to see people enjoying the book, and he knew that he had found his true calling. From that day forward, Peter spent all of his free time writing stories. He wrote about dragons and princesses, pirates and adventurers. He wrote stories about love and loss, hope and despair. He poured his heart and soul into his writing, and before long, he had a collection of stories that he was proud of. One day, Peter's parents came to visit him at the bookstore. They were surprised and delighted to see how happy their son was. They listened as Peter told them about his dreams of becoming a writer, and they were supportive of his dreams. Peter knew that he had a lot of hard work ahead of him, but he was determined to make his dreams a reality. He spent every spare moment he had writing, editing, and revising his stories. He submitted his stories to magazines and literary journals, and slowly but surely, his work started getting published. Over time, Peter became known as a talented young writer, and people started taking notice of his work. He was invited to speak at writing conferences and book festivals, and he was even offered a publishing deal for a collection of his stories. Peter's dreams had come true, but he never forgot where he came from. He continued to work at the bookstore, and he used his writing to inspire and encourage others. He wrote stories for children who were struggling with reading, and he donated his books to schools and libraries in underprivileged areas. Years passed, and Peter became a successful author, but he never lost his love for the written word. He continued to write, always striving to improve his craft and inspire others. And every time he walked into the bookstore where it all began, he was filled with a sense of gratitude and wonder. In the end, Peter's story was one of hard work, determination, and a deep love for the written word. He had taken a chance on his dream, and it had paid off in ways he could never have imagined. And as he looked back on his life, he knew that he had made the world a little bit brighter with his words. After many years of writing and publishing, Peter had become a renowned author. His books had touched the hearts of people all over the world, and he had won numerous awards for his work. Despite his success, Peter remained humble and grounded, always striving to improve his craft and help others along the way. One day, as Peter was signing books at a bookstore, a young girl approached him. She was shy and nervous, but she held out a copy of Peter's latest book and asked him to sign it. Peter smiled at her and took the book, asking her what her name was. "My name is Emily," she said softly. Peter smiled and signed the book for her. "It's so nice to meet you, Emily. Have you read the book yet?" Emily shook her head. "Not yet, but I can't wait to. I love your stories, Mr. Peter." Peter's heart swelled with pride and gratitude. "Thank you, Emily. That means a lot to me. What's your favorite story of mine?" Emily thought for a moment before answering. "I love the one about the dragon who learns to love. It's so beautiful." Peter smiled. "That's one of my favorites too. Do you know what I think is so special about that story?" Emily shook her head. "I think it's special because it reminds us that even the things that seem scary or different on the outside can have a heart full of love and kindness on the inside. Just like the dragon." Peter smiled. "That's one of my favorites too. Do you know what I think is so special about that story?" Emily shook her head. "I think it's special because it reminds us that even the things that seem scary or different on the outside can have a heart full of love and kindness on the inside. Just like the dragon." Emily looked up at Peter with wide eyes. "Do you really think so?" Peter nodded. "I do. And I hope that you remember that, no matter what life brings your way, there is always hope and love to be found." Emily smiled at Peter, and he could see the hope and wonder in her eyes. As she walked away, clutching her signed book, Peter knew that he had made a difference in her life, just as his books had made a difference in the lives of countless others. And so, Peter continued to write, always striving to touch hearts and inspire others with his words. He knew that the power of stories was limitless, and he was honored to be a part of that magic. Years later, as Peter looked back on his life, he knew that he had lived a full and meaningful life. He had followed his dreams, worked hard, and used his talents to make the world a better place. And as he closed his eyes for the last time, he knew that his stories would live on, inspiring generations to come. In the years that followed, Peter continued to write, always striving to create stories that would touch the hearts and minds of readers everywhere. He wrote novels, short stories, and even a few children's books. But no matter what he wrote, his love for the written word remained constant. As he grew older, Peter became more reflective about his life and his work. He realized that his success as a writer had not come from talent or luck alone, but from the support and encouragement of those around him. His family, his friends, his readers, and even the customers at the bookstore where he had once worked had all played a role in helping him achieve his dreams. And so, as a way of giving back, Peter decided to start a writing scholarship. Each year, he would select a promising young writer and offer them financial support, mentorship, and the opportunity to publish their work. The first year of the scholarship was a huge success, and Peter was overjoyed to see how his support was helping young writers achieve their dreams. The scholarship became an annual event, and over the years, many talented writers were given the chance to shine. As Peter's own writing career began to wind down, he knew that his legacy would live on through the work of these young writers. And he felt a deep sense of pride and satisfaction knowing that he had helped to nurture a new generation of storytellers. Eventually, Peter's health began to fail, and he knew that his time was running out. He gathered his family and closest friends around him, and they talked and laughed and shared memories late into the night. In the quiet moments, as he lay in bed, Peter reflected on his life and his work. He knew that he had been blessed with a wonderful family, great friends, and a fulfilling career. He felt grateful for the opportunities he had been given and the people who had helped him along the way. As the end drew near, Peter's mind turned to his stories. He thought about the characters he had created, the worlds he had built, and the messages he had tried to convey. He realized that, in the end, his stories were his greatest legacy. And so, with a smile on his face, Peter closed his eyes for the final time. He knew that his stories would live on, touching the hearts and minds of readers for generations to come. And he was at peace, knowing that he had done his part to make the world a little bit brighter with his words.